Hey everybody, and welcome. I am Alyssa Fountain, and with me I have my two right hands, Becca Bradley.
What's up?
And Corey Miles.
Corey in the house.
And you are listening to KBA. This week we are starting with a new segment, The Grapes of Gatsby. On this segment, each week we will compare and contrast certain aspects and themes of both novels. On this episode, we will be comparing the theme of moral corruption based on your call-in questions. First, let's start off with a short summary of each book for the listeners who haven't read them before.
The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is a social commentary on society set in the Roaring Twenties. Jay Gatsby, the protagonist and an affluent young businessman, was set on winning his dream girl Daisy. Gatsby's neighbor, Nick, also known as the novel's narrator, was curious about Gatsby and his luxurious lifestyle and Gatsby himself. The commentary on society is that people in the 1920s were only skin-deep and wealth-obsessed. Most all of the people who attended Gatsby's weekly parties have not even spoken to him before. Throughout the book, Nick becomes closer to Gatsby's true self than anyone else. Other characters like Tom, Myrtle, and her husband George are pertinent to the story's plot and one of the main themes revolving around old and new money. This story is a clear epitome of the promise of the unachievable American dream, as after a trying struggle, Gatsby never gets Daisy.
And The Grapes of Wrath was written by John Steinbeck in 1939. It begins with a man named Tom in the 1930s who was released from prison. He meets up with his family, which consists of his mother, father, Uncle John, his grandparents, his 5 siblings, Connie, and Jim Casey. They all pile into a car and make their way from their recently bulldozed home in Oklahoma to California. They go because they have heard of our high job prospects in the state. Throughout the journey, Grandpa and Grandma Jim Casey and Tom's sisters, Rose of Sharon's baby, die. Noah and Connie both leave during the journey. It's a story about a farming family trying to survive during the Great Depression.
All right, let's get right to it. Listeners, please call in with any questions you may have on these two books. Our number is 770-645-68645. Okay, caller number 1, you are on the air. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Rebecca Keel, and I'm from Roswell, Georgia.
So, what's your question?
So we're talking about moral corruption, right? Can you give us an example of moral corruption in both books?
Good question. So in The Grapes of Wrath, an example could be the wealthy farm owners in California who burned fruit because they produced too much and they wanted the prices to stay high.
Yeah, the fruit had been picked through hard labor, and it was a waste since people were starving all around them. People were watching them burn good food that they desperately needed.
The fruit could have just been sold anyway or given to people who couldn't afford to buy food. Instead, the wealthy only thought about themselves and their profit.
In The Great Gatsby, an example of moral corruption could be when Daisy ran over Myrtle. Daisy didn't even stop to make sure she was okay. She didn't turn herself in and only ignored the fact that she killed someone.
And because she didn't fess up to the crime, it ultimately caused Gatsby to be killed by Myrtle's husband, George. George believed that Gatsby was driving because it was his car that hit Myrtle, even though Daisy was driving.
Daisy was so corrupted that afterwards she went home and didn't even mourn in the slightest. She just went to patch up her relationship with Tom after the fight they had over Gatsby before the accident.
I hope that answered your question. All right, next caller, please.
Hello, I'm Eugene and I'm from Australia. I understand the corruption between the two, but how do they compare?
Well, they compare in a lot of ways. One of the biggest connections to the theme of moral corruption shown in both books could be the greed of money. The Great Gatsby is entirely based off of having or not having money, as well as the simple-mindedness that comes with it.
And The Grapes of Wrath is half about people taking money and half about the people who are in sore need of it.
Yeah, an example in The Grapes of Wrath would be when the farmers bulldozed other farmers' homes to make money. They sacrificed their morals in order to obtain money to provide food for their families.
That also is similar to how Gatsby in The Great Gatsby made his money, which was through illegal practices. Both parties did these things for personal reasons. The farmers so that their own homes wouldn't be destroyed and so that they could provide for their families. Gatsby did it so that he could win over Daisy's favor. They both ignored the consequences that other people would be affected, and like the Jodes in The Grapes of Wrath, their lives were practically destroyed.
Okay, thanks. I'll keep that in mind.
Thanks again for calling. Who's next?
Hey guys, longtime fan. I am Princess Consuelo Banana Hammock from Jamaica. Are there any people who aren't corrupted? I mean, there has to be someone, right?
Oh, yeah, there are. In Grapes of Wrath, it's easier to pick people. Ma Jode isn't corrupted. Throughout the book, she attempts to keep the family together and safe. She wasn't worried about the money as much as she was worried about her family's safety and well-being.
For The Great Gatsby, it's a little harder to tell.
I would say if it was anyone, it would be Nick. He is surrounded by corrupted people, but he still questions them. He questioned the people at Gatsby's party who only attended for reputational purposes. He questioned Daisy's motives for being with Gatsby. He did care about money, but he didn't flaunt it as others did.
Maybe allies as well? He didn't lie, and he was the only person excluding Nick and Gatsby's father who even tried to go to Gatsby's funeral.
Hope that helps. We only have time for one more caller.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rebecca Keel from Kentucky. What about in real life? Are there ways that this theme of moral corruption can be seen nowadays?
Yep, all over the place. Cheating in schools could be one. P.S. Don't do it. It's corrupted.
Stealing is also morally corrupt.
What about celebrities?
Ooh, yeah, like the Kardashians. They changed their whole appearance for fame and money. If you look at pictures before they became famous and pictures after, they don't even look like the same people. And that's not considering how they aged.
Blech.
Yeah, but the show is still my favorite, My Guilty Pleasure.
Most celebrities change their appearances. Plastic surgery is extremely popular. I don't suggest it, though.
All right, we're going to have to end it here. Tune in next week as we talk about our next theme, the American Dream. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and have a great week.
Bye.